Shalom Aleichem and welcome to a special shir on Rosh Hashana. In this shir we're going to be talking about the fact that Rosh Hashana is the Yom Hadin, the Day of Judgment, and we will take a very deep look at how exactly the judgment on Rosh Hashana works as it is explained in the teachings of Chassidus, Al Pi Chassidus. This shir is being generously sponsored by a member of Anash who wishes to remain anonymous in honor of the birthday of his twins this coming Friday, Yud Tes Elul, and we wish them a Shnas Bracha v'Hatzlacha, and we thank him very much for sponsoring the shir. Okay, so let's get to it. In Masechta Rosh Hashana, Daf Tazayin Amar Aleph, we have a Mishnah. And the Mishnah tells us, Barba Prakim Ha'olam Nidain, that the world is judged at 4 intervals during the year. But Pesach, Ala Tvua, on Pesach, we're judged regarding the grain, Batzeres, on Shavuos, Al Peiros Ha'ilon, for the fruit of the trees. But Rosh Hashana, Kol Bai Olam Oivrin, Lefanav Kivanei Marain, on Rosh Hashana, everybody passes before Hashem to be judged. And on Sukkot, we're judged on the matters of water. That's what the Mishnah says. And the Gemara comes along and tells us that our Mishnah does not follow the opinions of Rabbi Meir or Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yossi. Let's see why. So the Gemara says, Masnisin, Loi Rabbi Meir, V'loi Rabbi Yehuda, V'loi Rabbi Yossi. Our Mishnah does not follow Rabbi Meir or Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yossi. The Tanya, because we learned in a Braisa, Hakol nidoinu b'Rosh Hashana, u'gzar din shalohem nechtam b'Yom Kippurim divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir's opinion is that everybody is judged, everything is judged on Rosh Hashana, and the gzar din is sealed on Yom Kippur. So Rabbi Meir doesn't say that there are these 4 intervals during the year when we're judged, Pesach, the Tvua, and Shavuos, the Peiros. No, he says the whole judgment for everything is on Rosh Hashana, and then the Gzar Din is sealed on Yom Kippur. That's Rabbi Meir, so Rabbi Meir is clearly not the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, HaKol Nidoinen b'Rosh Hashana. Rabbi Yehuda says everything is judged on Rosh Hashana. Again, not like the Mishnah. Everything is judged on Rosh Hashana. U'Gzar Din shelahem nechtam kol echad ve'echad bizmanoi. B'Pesach al Tvua, b'Atzeres al Peiros Ha'ilon, u'B'Chag Nidoinen al Hamayim. V'Odam Nidoin b'Rosh Hashana, u'Gzar Din sheloi nechtam b'Yom Kippurim. Rabbi Yehuda says that everything is judged on Rosh Hashana, everything. And the sealing, the Gzar Din is sealed, so then each thing in its time. Pesach for the Tvua, Shavuos for the Peiros Ha'ilon, on Sukkot for the water, but that's only the sealing. So again, it's not like the Mishnah, because the Mishnah says the judgment is for each of these things in their time, whereas according to Rabbi Yehuda, everything is judged on Rosh Hashana, and it's only that the Gzar Din is sealed, each thing in its proper time. And Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Adam Nidain b'chol Yom. Rabbi Yossi says, no, person is judged every day. Every single day, a person is judged. So, in short, we can divide these 3 opinions, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yossi, into 2 general opinions. The opinion of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda together, which we call the Rabanan. So the opinion of the Rabanan is that everything is judged on Rosh Hashana. Okay, they argue when is the sealing. Is the sealing on Yom Kippur or is the sealing throughout the year? But the judgment for everything, according to Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, which again we call them the Rabbanan, the judgment for everything is on Rosh Hashana. And then we have Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi says, no, Adam Nidain b'chol Yom, a person is judged every single day. And the Gemara then says, a couple lines later, Rabbi Yosef, Keman matzlinan ha'idno. Nowadays, when we daven, our davening, whose opinion does that follow? We daven every day for different things. We daven for refuah, for parnasa. So who are we davening like? Keman Rabbi Yossi. We're davening like Rabbi Yossi. Why? As Rashi explains, because according to Rabbi Yossi, we're judged every single day. So therefore, we can daven every day that on that day we should be judged for bracha. But according to the Rabbanan, everything was already decided. Since we were judged on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, and everything was decided then. So there's no need to daven every day. It doesn't help to daven every single day, because whatever you're going to ask for was already predetermined and decided on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. So this is the simple explanation of the Gemara. So we have this Machlokes. According to the Rabanan, we're judged Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, and according to the Rabanan, seems to be that there's no need to daven for stuff every day because all these things were already decided. And then we have Reb Yossi, who seems to say that actually we're not even being judged on Rosh Hashana. There's nothing special about Rosh Hashana. We're being Adam Nidan B'chol Yom. Person is judged every day, and therefore we can daven every day, Baruch Aleinu Rafa'enu, and ask for things because we're judged every single day. This is the simple reading of the Gemara. However, we all understand that this cannot be the case. This cannot be the case because it's difficult to say that according to the Rabbanon, there's no need to daven every day. We only daven and ask for bakashas every day according to Rabbi Yossi. And according to the Rabbanon, there's no need to daven every day. That's very difficult to accept that notion. And Tosfos himself asks that question. How could we be saying that according to the Rabbanon, if everything is predetermined and everything is judged Rosh Hashana, there's no need to daven every day? It's difficult to say that. And then according to Rabbi Yossi, it's difficult the other way. It's difficult to say that according to Rabbi Yossi, Rosh Hashana is not the Yom Hadin. The fact that Rosh Hashana is Yom Hadin is a fundamental theme of Rosh Hashana. And there's psukim for this. Right? Ki chayk li Yisrael hu mishpat l'kei Yaakov. It's throughout the davening on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. This is the day of judgment. So that according to Rabbi Yossi, there's nothing special about Rosh Hashana. There's no din on Rosh Hashana because Adam Nidan B'chol Yom. We get judged every single day. It's also difficult to say that. So it must be that both sides agree to both facts. Everybody agrees that Rosh Hashana is the Yom Hadin. There is a grand judgment on Rosh Hashana, and this is true according to the Rabbanon and according to Rabbi Yossi. It also must be true that there's a certain judgment that happens every day. Adam Nidan B'chol Yom, we get judged every day, and therefore we can daven every day and ask for Baruch Aleinu and Rafa'enu, and our tefillah means something. Our tefillah has power because we get judged every day. So all opinions, both sides have to agree to both of these things, and yet there is a machlokes. So this needs to be clarified, this needs to be understood, and that's what we're talking about in today's shir, to understand what is the judgment that takes place on Rosh Hashana, what is the judgment that takes place every day, because both have to be true according to all opinions, and despite both of them being true, what is the machlokes between the Rabanan and Reb Yossi regarding the nature of the judgment which takes place on Rosh Hashana and every day. So as we will see, that we're going to explain this al pi Chassidus. The key to understanding this entire sugya, this is from the Rebbe Rashab in the end of Kondras U'Mayin. He has a long arichus about this topic, and today's shir is going to be taken from there. So the Rebbe Rashab says there that the key to unlocking this sugya is in a statement of the Alter Rebbe in Torah Oyer. Torah Oyer, Dibra Maschel Pasach Eliyahu, the Alter Rebbe says there a line. He says, Yoiser mimasha Ein Aroch Asiyah legabe Atzilus, Ein Aroch Atzilus legabe Oyer Ein Sof. Which means that even more than the Ein Aroch that exists between Asiyah and Atzilus, even more than that is the Ein Aroch that exists between Atzilus and Oyer Ein Sof. Which means, let's just rephrase that, Atzilus, Olam HaAtzilus to Olam HaAsiyah, the distance between those worlds is Ein Aroch, is infinite. Then we have the distance between Oyer Ein Sof and Olam HaAtzilus is also Ein Aroch, is also infinite. Yet the Alter Rebbe is saying the Ein Aroch, the infinity that exists between Oyer Ein Sof and Olam HaAtzilus, is more than the Ein Aroch, than the infinity that exists between Atzilus and Olam HaAsiyah. And this is a very strange thing to say, because we don't tend to think of Ein Aroch in terms of more or less. When we think of an infinite gap or an infinite space, Either something is mugbal, either something is limited, or it's infinite. In Hagbala, in limitation, you can have more or less, right? 1 to 100 or 1 to 1,000,000. So 1 to 1,000,000 is more than 1 to 100. But that's all within the world of finite, Hagbala. When we think about Beligvul, infinite, we don't tend to think of levels in infinity. Either it's infinite or it's not. Infinity seems to be something absolute. Either it is or it isn't. It doesn't seem to make sense that we should have two levels of infinity. This is less infinite and this is more infinite. So we need to understand what the Alter Rebbe meant when he said, Yoiser mimasha Ein Aroch Asiyah lagabi Atzilus, Ein Aroch Atzilus lagabi Ein Sof. How could there be more Ein Aroch or less Ein Aroch? And that basically is where the Machlokes between Rabanan and Reb Yossi comes in. They're arguing in the level of Ein Aroch that exists between Atzilus and Asiyah, as we shall see. But before we get there, let's back up and talk about some of the basics and technical side of how Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur and the Yom Hadin works. So according to Chassidus, we know that the sphere of Malchus da Atzilus is the sphere which is responsible for creating, giving chayis, giving hashpois into all the lower worlds. Olam is Bria, Yetzira, Asiyah. So the source of all the chayis, the source of all the hashpois into those worlds comes from Malchus da Atzilus. Malchuscha Malchus kol elamim. Malchus is called the mother of all the olamis, like Chava, Eim kol chai, the mother of all living things. That's Malchus da Atzilus. From Malchus da Atzilus flows the existence and the sustenance and the life for all of the lower olamis. Now, Malchus da Atzilus herself, she needs to be built up and she needs to receive all of her power, all of her light from what comes before her, from the higher spheres, from the higher worlds. And this is what happens on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. On Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, it's the time of Binyan HaMalchus, when Malchus is being built up, because Malchus, when Malchus is first created, or Malchus is first comes into existence, Malchus is only a nakuda. Malchus is just a point. And Malchus has nothing in and of itself. Malchus needs to be built up and needs to receive everything that it has to receive from higher. This is the Binyan HaMalchus which happens on Rosh Hashana, that there is a flow of energy, a flow of light, a flow of chayis from Keser and from Pnimius HaKeser, from Atik, into Malchus. And Malchus becomes loaded up on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. Malchus becomes loaded up with all the stuff that Malchus is going to need for its job, which is to create and give sustenance and give chayis to Olam Biyah throughout the year. So we can say on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, it's like the recharging of Malchus. Malchus is completely depleted on Erev Rosh Hashana. Malchus is empty, there's nothing left in Malchus da Atzilus. It therefore does not have the power to continue giving hashpah into Olam Biyah. And on Rosh Hashana, we have the Binyan HaMalchus, where Malchus is recharged. And you have all of these amazing hashpois and amshachis from Keser, from Atik, from Arich, from Chochmah, from all the spheres into Malchus, loading Malchus up and recharging Malchus, giving it all that it needs, so that in the coming year, Malchus can continue to give chayis and life and sustenance to all the worlds and all the creations. This is what happens on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. Specifically, let's now get more specific. There's a difference between Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. This is from the Kisvei HaArizal, which in the Kisvei HaArizal it says that on Rosh Hashana it's drawn into Malchus from the Hei Chasodim of Atik. At Atik, which is Pnimius HaKeser. So Rosh Hashana, it's drawn into Malchus from the Hei Chasodim of Atik. And on Yom Kippur, is drawn into Malchus from the Hei Gvuros of Atik. Okay, so let's keep this in mind. Rosh Hashana, Malchus gets from the Hei Chasodim of Atik, and on Yom Kippur, Malchus gets from the Hei Gvuros of Atik. Now, what does the Chasodim of Atik do? So the Chasodim which comes to Malchus from the Hei Chasodim of Atik, that is the actual chayis That is the actual energy which Malchus needs. That's chesed. Chesed is the flow of hashpah. Chesed is what Malchus uses to give chayas, to give life. So the Hei Chasodim Da'atik is the source of all chayas, the source of all sustenance, the source of all life. That flows into Malchus on Rosh Hashana. Malchus receives that on Rosh Hashana, and Malchus uses that then to feed and keep alive and sustain all the worlds. So that's the source of everything, is these Hei Chasodim of Atik. However, we still need the Hei Gevuros of Atik. Just the Chasodim by itself is not enough. Why? Because without Gevura, the Chesed is in a very general state. And the Chesed is in a state where it's not yet able to be received by the Olamus. In order for the Chesed to be received by the Olamus, the Chesed has to be broken up. And the Chesed has to be broken up into specific parts, into different things. And only in that way is the Chesed usable and receivable by the Olamus. And there's three examples, three mashalim to explain the function of Gevura in this context. The first mashal is from the concept of rain. The Mishnah calls rain Gevuros Geshamim, right? Me'emasai maskirin Gevuros Geshamim. So why is Geshem called Gevura? So one of the explanations is because the way rain falls, you don't just get a gush of water. The rain falls in droplets, tippin, meaning the big water is broken up into tiny drops. That's the function of Gevura. Gevura is the koyach hamechalik. Gevura is the koyach hatzimtzum. Gevura takes one big chunk, one big thing, and breaks it up into smaller bite-sized pieces or smaller parts. Now, if we think about rain, if rain fell as one big gush, that would be terrible. That would just flood and destroy. What makes rain a bracha, what makes rain something that the world can receive and grow from, is the fact that rain falls in these droplets. So if we just had chesed, if rain only came from chesed, it would be one big gush, and that would flood. That would be too much for us to handle. The gvura within the geshem, the Gevuros Geshamim, breaks the rain up into tippin, into these little droplets, and that way the rain is a bracha, and we could receive the rain in a way that is good for us. It's one mashal. Another mashal we have is from the Hei Moitzois Hapeh, right? Man Sapach, when we speak, so different letters come from different parts of the mouth. Some from the lips, some from the tongue, some from the throat. These are the Man Sapach. That's the 5 letters which symbolize the 5 Hei Moitzois Hapeh, from where different sounds come out. Which these are the 5 Gevuros. Lines up the Hei Moitzois Hapeh with the Hei Gevuros. Now, if we think about when a person speaks, what are the ingredients in speech? So firstly, you have your voice, and then you have the letters, right? Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled. So a person's voice, before we introduce letters, is just a simple voice, ah. And that has no meaning. Pure voice without letters has no meaning, it's just a voice. What the letters do, what the Hei Moitzois Hapeh, what the letters do as the voice comes through our mouth, and different parts of our mouth, the tongue, the lips, the throat, what the Hei Moitzois Hapeh do is it breaks up that voice into different details. This voice should sound like a b, and this voice should sound like a l, and a m, and a p. So the Hei Moitzois Hapeh break up the voice into specific types of sounds, and that's what enables us to speak. That's how we make words. So again, we see the function of Gevura is to take the koil, take the voice, which is in and of itself simple and pure, and break it up into different types of smaller sounds, and that way I can make words, I can make sentences, and somebody else can understand. So my koil, my voice, is receivable by somebody else only because it comes from the Hei Moitzois Hapeh, only because the Hei Gevuros break it up into letters. Without the Hei Gevuros, it would be just a pure voice, and the recipient, the Makabel, wouldn't be able to get anything from that. And the third mashal that he says there is from the fingers of the hand. A person's hand has koyach, has power. You can do a lot of things with your hand. You can throw, you can write, you can do many things with your hand. But again, we have here the koyach as it is in the hand as a general koyach, and then we have the koyach as it is broken up by the fingers. The 5 fingers, again, that number 5, the Hei Gevuros break up the general koyach in the hand into specific koyches. And each finger has particular things that it can do, that it's good for. When you want to write, you have specific fingers. When you want to throw, you have specific fingers. And every function that the hand does, it relies on different fingers to do it. And what are the fingers doing? The fingers are breaking up the general koyach hayad, which in the hand is in a very general state, and it breaks it up into specific, smaller koyches, which then allow you to actually do something with it. Because when the koyach is in its general state, you can't do anything with it. So coming back to Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, this is what happens on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. On Rosh Hashana, Malchus receives from the Hei Chasodim of Atik. Malchus gets this amazing flow, this amazing recharge of energy, and Malchus is loaded up with everything that it needs to sustain the world for the coming year. But the problem is that at that point, that chayis, that energy that Malchus has is too general. It's not broken up, and therefore it's not functional. You can't do it. Malchus can't do anything with it. The worlds cannot receive it in that way. So then we comes to Yom Kippur. This is the chaysam. This is the sealing of Yom Kippur. What happens on Yom Kippur, specifically by Ne'ilah, is that Malchus receives the Hei Gvurais of Atik, and that breaks up that chunk of Chesed which Malchus got on Rosh Hashana. The Hei Gvurais of Atik break it up into smaller pieces, and now Malchus actually has something that it can deliver to the Olamus. It has a Chesed which is functional, and Malchus can now embark in the coming year, giving the Olamus and every specific creature, every specific creation within the Olamus can get its particular dose of Chesed now that the Chesed has been broken up by the Hei Gvuros of Atik. So this is what happens by the end of Yom Kippur. So by the end of Yom Kippur, what we have is Malchus has Chayis for the whole year. Malchus has what it needs to sustain the Olamus for the whole year. And Malchus does not just have it in a general state, Malchus has it already broken up, divided up by the Hei Gvuros for every particular creation. Every particular creation by the end of Yom Kippur was already assigned and has its flow of chesed, its flow of energy, its sustenance, its chayis, its kiyum for the whole year. It's being held by Malchus da Atzilus. It was broken up already into specific parts, and therefore every specific creation has their dose of chayis, which is stored in Malchus for it. And by the end of Yom Kippur, all of this was decided. Every creature was assigned and ascribed a certain dose of chesed, particular to it, specifically tailored for it. And by the end of Yom Kippur, every single thing was judged and has its chayis specifically for the coming year. With that, we can now come to the Machlokes between Rabanan and Reb Yossi. Why do they argue, and where does the Machlokes come from? So the question that we have to ask now is as follows. Because the Chayis on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur is still contained within Malchus da Atzilus, it hasn't yet flowed down to the Olamus. Right? The Olamus are going to, and all the creations are going to receive their sustenance from Malchus throughout the entire year. But by the end of Yom Kippur, whatever chayis is intended for every single creature and for every single creation, that is still contained within Malchus da Atzilus. So the question becomes, what form does that chayis have as it is still included within Malchus da Atzilus? What does it look like? What does that chesed look like? Does it look like the same kind of hashbois that we know of in Olam Hazeh? Or is it something of another nature? So let's make it simple. When we think about the hashbois that we need here in Olam Hazeh, in Olam Asiyah, people's needs, generally we categorize them in three categories. Bone, chaye, umezayna. Person needs children, person needs health and life, and parnasa. These are our needs. Bana chayim zayin. That's the way hashbois translate into, in Olam Hazeh, into our actual needs. Bana chayim zayin. So when we think about the chayis as it is contained within Malchus d'Atzilus by the end of Yom Kippur, and it's been divided up. Again, we had the Hey Gvuros. Each person, each creation, each Nivra has already assigned their account, call it, right? Malchus is a grand bank. We can think about it as a big bank. There's a big bank called Malchus d'Atzilus, and every single creation has a bank account, has an account within Malchus d'Atzilus, and in that bank account is stored all of the stuff that they need for the coming year. That's what happens. But the question is, what does that look like? So when I look in Malchus d'Atzilus, does the chayis that was given to Malchus, for Malchus to pass on, does that have the form of Bona Chayu Mezayna? Is the chesed within Malchus d'Atzilus already taking on the form of the type of hashpois gashmios that we need? Or, since it's still in Olam HaAtzilus, no, it's still completely beruchnius, and it has not yet come down, it has not yet descended into the realm of gashmius to be the types of hashpois that we need and that we know of. So this is the Machlokes between Rabanan and Reb Yossi. So let's start with Reb Yossi, because this is the more simple opinion, the more simple position. Reb Yossi maintains that Atzilus to Asiyah is Ein Aroch. The gap between Atzilus and Asiyah is infinite. Right? Atzilus is Elikus. Atzilus is still Getlich. It still belongs to the realm of Elikus. And Olam is Bia, Bria. Bria begins Metzias. Bria is Yesh Me'ayin. Bria begins the new creation. So therefore Atzilus to Asiyah is Ein Aroch. It's the Ein Aroch between Beira and Nivra. Right? It's the Ein Aroch between the creator and the creation. Atzilus belongs to the realm of the creator, the Beira. Asiyah belongs to the realm of the creation, and therefore it is Ein Aroch. And since it is Ein Aroch, says Reb Yossi, there cannot be within Atzilus, the chesed within Malchus d'Atzilus cannot be of the same nature as the chesed is within Olam HaAsiyah. In Olam HaAsiyah, the world that we live in, what does the chesed look like? What does the chesed translate into? As we said, Bona Chaya Mezayna. That's what the chesed becomes. But in Olam HaAtzilus and Malchus d'Atzilus, there is no Bona Chaya Mezayna. There's no concept of children, there's no concept of parnasa, there's no concept of health, of life. So there's no tziyur, there's no form of Bona Chaya Mezayna within Malchus d'Atzilus. So it's true that on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, every single creation is assigned its dose of chesed, its amount of chesed, which will be its hashba and its chayas for the coming year. And as we said, imagine it like a bank. Every creation has their account within Malchus specifically assigned to them. This is what you have put away. This is your savings account for the whole year, and you will live the whole coming year off this. But what's inside that safe box, what's inside that account, is a very ruchniistic type of chesed. That chesed has not yet taken on the form of Bona Chaya Mezayna. It's still within Atzilus. And since it's within the world of Atzilus, it's an entirely different type of chesed. It's a chesed without a physical form, without a physical manifestation. It's pure ruchniistic chesed, which looks nothing like the chesed that we know of and that we need. And therefore, says Reb Yossi, the judgment on Rosh Hashana is not enough. It's not enough the judgment on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. Because on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, you were only assigned your account, your bank account in Malchus d'Atzilus, and in there is your chayis for the whole year. But that chayis is still undefined. That chayis has no form, has no formation, has no tziyur. What does that chayis look like? What will that chayis become? That's still undecided. It could be that your entire account of chesed that's within Malchus d'Atzilus that you received on Rosh Hashana, could be that will all go into only one of the three. Maybe Bona, you'll have many children. Or maybe Chaya, you'll be very healthy. Or maybe Mezayne. So maybe all of your Chayas will go into one of the three. Or maybe it will go into two of the three. Or maybe it will go into all three. So this has not yet been decided on Rosh Hashana. And for this, there has to be a judgment every single day. So that's why Rabbi Yossi says, Adam nidin b'chol yom. Adam nidin b'chol yom, there's a judgment every day. That's deciding for that day, what should your chesed that you received in Malchus d'Atzilus on Rosh Hashana, what should that chesed come down and manifest itself as? Should it manifest itself as Rafa'enu, as Refuah, or Baruch Aleinu, as Parnasa, or something else? That was not yet decided on Rosh Hashana. That's decided every single day. There's a separate din of mishpat every day, deciding how your chesed, which is in Malchus d'Atzilus, that was put away for you on Rosh Hashana, how that chesed today should be given to you. Should you get all three, Bana Chayim Azayna? Should you get only two? Should you get only one? Or perhaps, should you get none, and your chesed will remain as a ruchniistic chesed, and it will never manifest itself in Gashmis. So this is the judgment that happens every single day. And with this, we can understand a very interesting story of the Baal Shem Tov. That a couple once came to the Baal Shem Tov, they were not blessed with children, and they asked the Baal Shem Tov for a bracha for children. And this couple was very wealthy. So the Baal Shem Tov told them that if you will agree to lose all of your money and become poor, then you will get a bracha for children. And they agreed, and that's what happened. They lost their money, and they were blessed with children. So how do we understand the story? Why was it necessary for them to lose their money in order to have children? So the answer is based on what we just said now. The Baal Shem Tov saw that based on the amount of chesed that was assigned to them on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur in their account in Malchus d'Atzilus, they were given a certain amount of chesed, a certain amount of hashpah. The Baal Shem Tov saw that there was not enough hashpah there to allow them to have parnasa, to be wealthy, and to have children. There was only enough for one. So they had been judged by the Beis Din Shel Maila that their chesed in Malchus d'Atzilus should be channeled towards parnasa. So they were wealthy. But there was nothing left for them to have a bracha for children. So the Baal Shem Tov, that's the power of a tzaddik. The power of a tzaddik is he can change from one to the other. He can say, instead of your chesed, that's in Malchus d'Atzilus, that was assigned to you, instead of that going towards ashirus, to being wealthy, I can change that and put it towards children, which is what he did. So that again is something which is not decided on Rosh Hashana. On Rosh Hashana it was decided that this couple should have X amount of credit, X amount of chesed points in their bank account in Malchus d'Atzilus. How it's going to be used was not yet decided. That's decided Adam Nidin B'chol Yom every single day. That's decided later. Today, your credits will go towards parnasa, towards children, towards health, and that a tzaddik is able to manipulate and change, that even if it was decided that today, or this week, or this month, your credits are going towards this, the tzaddik can daven and change it towards something else. But it's all based on how much credit and how much chesed was assigned to you on Rosh Hashana that's waiting for you in your account in Malchus d'Atzilus. So this is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. So it turns out that even Rabbi Yossi agrees, as we said in the beginning, Rabbi Yossi agrees that there's a judgment that takes place on Rosh Hashana. Everybody says that. Rosh Hashana is the Yom HaDin. And Rabbi Yossi agrees that's the Iker Din, the main judgment, the most important judgment that happens is on Rosh Hashana. Why? Because that's when every single Nivra is judged and assigned their account of chesed, their account of points, their account of credits within Malchus d'Atzilus for the whole year. That's decided on Rosh Hashana, and there's nothing to be done after. Once Rosh Hashana Yom Kippur is over, that cannot be changed. Whatever you're going to get the rest of the year is all going to be coming from that bank account in Malchus d'Atzilus, where the Eibishter assigned for you on Rosh Hashana your credits and your points for the whole year. So that's the main judgment. That's the main judgment. If you were given a lot on Rosh Hashana, if your account in Malchus d'Atzilus has a lot of chesed, there will be enough for you to have a lot of hashbois. And you can have Bana, Chaya, Mazayna, and a lot of each, or a lot of all of them, a lot of some of them. But there's a lot to work with. If on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur you were only given a little bit of chesed, your account has only a small amount of credits for the whole year, then there isn't much to work with, and throughout the whole year you're going to be only surviving on that. However, Rabbi Yossi still says, Adam Nidin B'chol Yom, there's a secondary judgment that happens every day. And this is also a full din. It's a din gomer. There's a full-on judgment every single day. And that is, again, deciding what your chesed in Malchus d'Atzilus should manifest itself in for that day. Because as we said, since Atzilus and Asiyah are Ein Aroch, and in Atzilus there's no form of Chesed Gashmi, the Bona Chayim Azayna that we know of does not exist in Malchus Atzilus. So your account of Chesed in Malchus Atzilus is a Chesed in a very abstract and very spiritual form. So every single day you have to be judged, as though it should be decided what form of Chesed your Hashpois should come into for that day. Should it be Bona, Chaya, Mazayna, one of them, two of them, three of them, or entirely should it stay Beruchnius? This is the din that happens every single day. And that's why we daven, Baruch Aleinu Rafa'enu, and we daven every single day asking that from our account of Chesed in Malchus Datzilus, which is abstract, pure Chesed in a very spiritual state, that today that Chesed should come down and manifest itself in Baruch Aleinu Rafa'enu Bona Chayim B'Zayna, and it should become all the Ashbois Gashmiyos that we need for that day. And if we're judged good today, then today we'll have all of those things. And if today's judgment, Chas v'Shalom, does not go badly, goes badly, then today we won't have the Bona Chayim B'Zayna that we need for that day. Because on Rosh Hashana, it's only decided the general amount of Chesed for the whole year, but not the form of Chesed, as we've said. Now we can come to the opinion of the Rabanan. The Rabanan argue with Reb Yossi. And they say, no. That even though Atzilus and Asiyah are Ein Aroch, yet, according to the Rabbanon, the Chesed as it is in Malchus Datzilus, that's decided on Rosh Hashana, it already has the form of Bona Chayim B'Zayna. And that's where they argue. That's the point of the Machlokes. Rabbi Yossi, as we already said, says that on Rosh Hashana you're only given the Chesed in a pure, abstract, spiritual form, and it does not have the form of Bona Chayim B'Zayna. That's decided every day. The Rabbanan say no. Already within Malchus Datzilus, within Olam Atzilus, when you are assigned your account on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, and it's put away, this is your Chesed for the whole year. Although it's within Malchus Datzilus, once you're assigned your account of Chesed, that already takes on the form of Bona Chayim B'Zayna. It's not just an abstract spiritual Chesed. Even within Malchus Datzilus, it's decided exactly what your Chesed will look like. Will it be a Chesed of Bona, of Chaya, of Mezayna, two of them, three of them? That's the Chesed within Atzilus already has that form. And that's already included within Malchus Atzilus, and therefore that was already decided on Rosh Hashana. It was not only decided on Rosh Hashana how much Chesed you would have in your account, it's also decided what form that Chesed will have. Will it be Bana? Will it be Chaya? Will it be Mezayna? The Rabbanan say that you're not judged on every day because that's already decided on Rosh Hashana. How is it decided on Rosh Hashana? Because Malchus Atzilus already has, the Chesed within Malchus Atzilus already has the form of the Chasodim Gashmim that we know of in Olam Hazeh. The Bona Chayim B'Zayna is already nitztayer within Malchus Atzilus. And this has to do with what we said before, the fact that Yoiser Mimasha Ein Aroch Asiyah Lagabi Atzilus, Ein Aroch Atzilus Lagabi Ein Sof. Because yes, it's Be'ein Aroch. Atzilus to Asiyah is Be'ein Aroch. However, there's levels in Ein Aroch. And it's not the same kind of Ein Aroch that exists between Atzilus and Ein Sof. The Ein Aroch between Atzilus and Ein Sof is more, Yoiser. And therefore, that type of Ein Aroch, we would say, within Ein Sof, there is nothing like Atzilus. Ein Sof does not contain within itself the form of Atzilus. Because that's Yoiser Ein Aroch. That's the kind of Ein Aroch which is even more. However, Atzilus to Asiyah is less Ein Aroch. And that type of Ein Aroch, because it's less, so there is contained within Atzilus the form of Asiyah. The type of Chesed which we know of in Olam Asiyah is already contained within Olam Atzilus. Malchus Atzilus already has that Tziyur, because it's Ein Aroch, but it's not really Ein Aroch, or it's less Ein Aroch. So this is what we need to explain right now. What are these two different types of Ein Arochs? How can there be two levels of Ein Aroch? What's the difference between the Ein Aroch between Atzilus and Asiyah, and the Ein Aroch between Ein Sof and Atzilus? And with that we'll understand the Shita of the Rabbana. So, let's talk about the Ein Aroch between Atzilus and Asiyah. So we know that within every Olam, there's 10 spheres, right? Within Atzilus you have your 10 spheres, Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, and the spheres are nishtalshal one from the other. From Chachma comes Bina, from Bina comes Das, then comes Chesed, Gvura. We have the ishtalshlus of the spheres one from another, and we call this ishtalshlus ilo v'olam. In Olam HaBriya, the same thing. You have Chachma de Briya, Bina de Briya, Das of Briya, Chesed of Briya, and the spheres within every Olam are nishtalshal from each other. So that's one kind of ishtalshlus that exists within Seder Hishtalshlus. That's the hishtalshlus of the spheres one from another within each Olam. Then there is another kind of hishtalshlus that exists within Seder Hishtalshlus, and that is Chachma de Atzilus to Chachma de Briya to Chachma de Yetzirah to Chachma de Asiyah. The Chachma within each of these Olamis is nishtalshal one from the other. From Chachma de Atzilus is nishtalshal Chachma de Briya. From Chachma de Briya is nishtalshal Chachma de Yetzirah, and then Chachma de Asiyah. Same thing with Chesed. From Chesed Atzilus is nishtalshal Chesed of Briya, then Chesed of Yetzirah, and then Chesed of Asiyah. So this is not a hishtalshalus of the spheres one from another within a particular Olam. This is a hishtalshalus from Olam to Olam, from Atzilus to Briya to Yetzirah, Asiyah, and it's the hishtalshalus of every sphere, Chachma to Chachma to Chachma, Chesed to Chesed to Chesed, and so on and so forth. So these are both called hishtalshalus, and they both are a hishtalshalus, but there's a fundamental difference between them. When you have the spheres that are nishtalshal from each other within every Olam, so within Olam Atzilus you have Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. There, as the spheres are nishtalshal one from another, they remain within the same Olam. It's all within Olam Atzilus. So they have the same mahus, they're of the same caliber, of the same essence. It's a lower manifestation, but there's no leap. We're not leaping. It's a gradual descent. Chachma to Bina to Das to Chesed to Gvura. This is a gradual descent, all within the same Olam. So it's all of the same mahus, it's all of the same essence. But when we have a hishtalshlus of the other kind, Chachma d'Atzilus to Chachma de Briya, to Chachma de Yetzirah, to Chachma de Asiyah, yes, it's a hishtalshlus, but here the hishtalshlus is in a way of leaping. Chachma d'Atzilus to Chachma de Briya is a leap, it's a jump. It's a whole new world. Chachma d'Atzilus is one reality, and Chachma de Briya is a whole new reality, it's a whole new realm. So we're jumping into a whole new world. So, on one hand, Chachma d'Atzilus to Chachma de Briya to Chachma to Yetzirah is mitzad echad, it's a hishtalshalus, but mitzad sheni, it's a leap. So how do we understand this? So the mashal for this is from the idea of a mashal. We're actually going to give two mashalim. The first mashal to understand this type of hishtalshalus from Chachma to Chachma to Chachma to Chachma, or Chesed to Chesed to Chesed to Chesed, is to understand the idea of a mashal. When a person is trying to explain something, and the concept is too difficult to be understood, so you have to give a mashal. So for example, when we want to explain the concept of Hashem's Oir Ein Sof, or the Oir of Hashem, we have no idea what that is. So we have to give a mashal. Our mashal is from the Oir that we know of. Right? We know of a Shemesh, there's a sun, and there's a Oir HaShemesh. So our Shemesh and the Oir HaShemesh is a mashal to the Eibishter and his Oir Ein Sof. Just like there's a Shemesh, and the Shemesh emanates Oir, from the Shemesh shines out Oir, so you have the Eibishter, and from him shines out Oir. So that's a mashal. Now the mashal is not the nimshal. The mashal is a davar zar. When we enter the world of the mashal, it's a whole new reality. We're not talking anymore about the Eibishter and Oir Ein Sof. We're talking about the Shemesh and the Oir HaShemesh. The Shemesh and the Oir HaShemesh is not the Eibishter. So we've left the world of the nimshal, and we've entered the world of a mashal. And the mashal is a davar zar. The mashal is something foreign. It's something completely different to the nimshal. And the mashal is mailim umaster on the nimshal. It's possible for a person to read a mashal, to see a mashal, to hear a mashal, and not even get that there is a nimshal, let alone not even understand the nimshal. So the mashal doesn't scream out the nimshal. The mashal is the mashal. The mashal is something else. It's a new concept. It's a foreign concept. And the mashal conceals the nimshal. Elamai, a person who's smart, a smart person, can, from the mashal, extract the nimshal. So when that happens, when a person gets a mashal, reads a mashal, hears a mashal, and they extract from that mashal, they extract the nimshal, right? We see the shemesh, oira shemesh, and we extract from that the concept of atzmus and oira inside. So when we have the havana, when we get the understanding of the nimshal through the mashal, that new understanding that we have, is that a different seichel to what the nimshal is? No. Lemaisa, what is the person? Lemaisa, we're understanding the nimshal. We're understanding there's an inyan of oir, ein soif, that comes from atzmus and mahutz, and we have some kind of understanding in the nimshal because of the mashal. So when we extract the nimshal from the nimshal that we extract is not a whole new seichel. It's the same seichel. It's the same seichel as the original nimshal. But on the other hand, it's a whole new mahus. It's a whole new world. We're no longer dealing directly in the world of atzmus and oir ein soif. We're dealing in the world of shemesh and oira shemesh. And our understanding comes through the mashal. So since our understanding comes through the mashal, the understanding that we have in the nimshal, there's a davar v'hipuchai. Mitzad echad, it's the same seichel as the original nimshal, but on the other hand, it's the same seichel in a whole new realm, in a whole new reality, in a much lower level. We're not really understanding the nimshal as the nimshal is. We're understanding the nimshal through the lenses of the mashal. So through the lenses of the mashal, it's the same seichel, but it's not the same seichel. It's the same seichel, but it's the same seichel as that seichel manifests itself in a completely lower and new type of reality. It's understanding oir ein soif through oir hashemesh. So through oir hashemesh, what do we really understand? We understand oir hashemesh, and from there we have a glimpse into oir ein soif. So again, it's a davar v'hipuchai. On one hand, it's the same seichel, but on the other hand, it's the same seichel with a new mahus, the same seichel with a whole new look, the same seichel as the seichel plays itself out in a new reality, in a lower reality, in a whole new realm. So this is the concept of the ishtalshus of Chachma the Atzilus to Chachma the Bria to Chachma the Yetzirah to Chachma the Asiyah. Chachma of Bria is not a new Chachma the Bria to Chachma the Atzilus. It's not a whole different concept. There's a similarity. Chachma the Bria is Chachma. Chachma the Atzilus is Chachma, and Chachma the Bria is Chachma. On one hand, it's the same sug mitzias, it's the same kind of mitzias. This is Chachma and this is Chachma, and this is Chachma. But on the other hand, it's a whole new mahus. The Chachma the Atzilus and the Chachma the Bria is not the same kind of Chachma. Chachma the Atzilus is Chachma on the level of Atzilus. Chachma the Bria is the same idea, Chachma, but as that plays itself out, as it manifests itself in a new reality called Olam HaBriya, which is a whole new type of Chachma. So it's Chachma, it's the same Sug Metzias as Chachma Atzilus, but with a new Mahus, with a whole new reality. Another mashal for this is the idea of Mesikus. This is a famous mashal which Chassidus often gives, that if we think about the concept of sweetness, so we see the concept of Mesikus on many different levels. On the lowest level, we have mesikus that we can taste. A person eats a sweet food, you can taste the sweetness. So you have the mesikus gashmi that your tongue can taste in a food. Then we have the mesikus in a nigun. Certain melodies that you listen to, you say, wow, this is a zisa nigun. It's a sweet melody. You can detect sweetness in the melody. And then you can have the idea of mesikus in seichel. Wow, that seichel was a geschmacke seichel, was a zisa seichel, it was sweet. So when we think about these types of sweetnesses, right? The chesed, the mesikus gashmi that you can taste, the mesikus of a nigun, or the mesikus of a seichel, is it the same mahus or is it a different mahus? The answer is both. On one hand, it's not the same. The mesikus of a food you can taste. The mesikus of a nigun you can't taste. The mesikus of a seichel you can't taste. So it's a whole different mahus. One's a seichel, one's a nigun, and one's a food. But on the other hand, it's the same sug metzius. When we describe the mesikus of a food, and we describe the mesikus of a nigun, or the mesikus of a svara, it's the same, deep down, it's the same kernel it's the same sug metzius. It's the same muhus, it's the same inyan, the manifestation is different. In seichel, the mesikus manifests itself in the world of seichel. In negina, the same concept of mesikus manifests itself in the world of negina, which is lower. And in a physical food, that same concept of mesikus expresses itself, manifests itself in a physical taste of mesikus. So on one hand, they are be'ein aroch. Each level of mesikus is nothing like the other. But on the other hand, there is something in common. The mesikus in each of these realms, at its root, at its heart, at its essence, is the same type of metzius. So that's the ishtalshlus that exists from chesed to Atzilus, to chesed to bria, to chesed to yitzir, to chesed to asiyah. On one hand, it's the same chesed. It's the same sug metzius. It's the same type of metzius. But on the other hand, each level is a jump be'ein aroch. The chesed of Atzilus is nothing like the chesed of bria, which is nothing like the chesed of yitzir, and so on and so forth. So this is why we say yoyser mimasha ein aroch asiyah legabe Atzilus, ein aroch Atzilus legabe Ein Sof. There are two different types of ein arochs. The Ein Aroch of Asiyah to Atzilus is like the Ein Aroch of Chachma Atzilus to Chachma Asiyah, or Chesed Atzilus to Chesed Asiyah. It's Be'ein Aroch because here, as we said in the mashal, here the mesikus is the mesikus in a food, and here the mesikus is the mesikus of a seichel. A physical taste of something sweet, and the sweetness of a seichel is Be'ein Aroch. They're completely different wavelengths. There's nothing in common, right? From increasing the one, you'll never get to the other. If you stay on the track of Mesikus Gashmi, you'll never get to Mesikus of Seichel. It's a jump. A jump meaning it's Be'ein Aroch. It's a leap. It's exponential. But on the other hand, that, like we keep saying at the end of the day, there is something in common. Chachma Atzilus and Chachma Asiyah. Chesed Atzilus and Chesed Asiyah, at the root of it, in the sug metzius, is the same thing. So the Ein Aroch is, what's the Ein Aroch? That Chachma Atzilus to Chachma Asiyah is Be'ein Aroch. Because the sug Chachma, the type of Chachma, is not the same. They have something in common, they're both the same. This is Chachma and this is Chachma. So in that they are the same. In that they're not Be'ein Aroch. Chachma and Chachma, on both ends of the spectrum, it's Chachma. The Ein Aroch is this type of Chachma. To that type of Chachma is Be'ein Aroch. That's the Ein Aroch of Asiyah to Atzilus. Both are a Metzius. Atzilus is a Olam. Atzilus is a Metzius. Olam Asiyah is a Metzius. That they have in common. The Ein Aroch is, here the Metzius is Betachlis Hadakus V'Aruchnius. That's Olam Atzilus. In Olam Asiyah, it's Betachlis Hagashmius V'Achurnius. But it's the same root, it's the same sug metzius, it's the same nekuda, the same things. Here they are in their most ruchniistic form, and here they are in their most gashmistic form. So that is be'ein aroch, but still they have something in common. Masha Enken, the Ein Aroch of Ein Sof to Atzilus is complete Ein Aroch. Within Ein Sof, which is Pashat B'tachlis Apshitus, there's no metzius of Atzilus at all. Ein Sof is a complete ayin. There's no metzius, there's no yesh, there's nothing. There's just pshitus, there's bligvul. Atzilus is spheres. Atzilus is a world. We're dealing with a metzius dvarma. Metzius to ayin is be'ein aroch. So the Ein Aroch of Ein Sof to Atzilus is the Ein Aroch of ayin to yesh. Ein Sof is ayin, Atzilus is yesh. That's total Ein Aroch. Whereas the Ein Aroch of Asiyah to Atzilus is the Ein Aroch of one yesh to another yesh. Atzilus is a yesh. Atzilus is a metzius. Asiyah is a metzius. This metzius to that metzius is be'ein aroch. But on the other hand, since this is a metzius and this is a metzius, and it's the same type of metzius, here you have 10 spheres, here you have 10 spheres, so therefore it's be'ein aroch, but at the same time, there is a tzad hashana. It is the same sug metzius. The Meila, this is the opinion of the Rabanan. The Rabanan say to Reb Yossi, you're right. You're right that Ein Aroch Asiyah to Atzilus. You're right. But What type of Ein Aroch? It's the type of Ein Aroch, like we said, Mesikus Gashmi to Mesikus of Seichel. So therefore, whatever types of Metziusin you have in Olam HaAsiyah, you have those Metziusin also in Olam HaAtzilus. So if you have Bana Chaya Mezayna in Olam HaAsiyah, then you also have Bana Chaya Mezayna in Malchus Atzilus. Granted, the Bana Chaya Mezayna that you have in Olam HaAsiyah is not the same as the Bana Chaya Mezayna that you have in Olam HaAtzilus. The Bana Chaya Mezayna in Olam HaAsiyah is Gashmiistic. The Bana Chaya Mezayna in Malchus Atzilus is completely Ruchniistic, like Mesikus Gashmi to Mesikus Ruchni. But it's the same Sug Mitzius. So if this is Bana Chaya Mezayna, then here is Bana Chaya Mezayna. So B'meila, as it says the Rabanan, when on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, the Eibishter assigns every Nivra their bank account in Malchus Atzilus, their credits for the whole year. Here's your hashpah, contained within Malchus Atzilus for the whole year. Since that is Chesed within Malchus Atzilus, and from there is Nishtal Shel the Chesed in Olam HaAsiyah HaGashmi. So therefore, within Malchus Atzilus, you have in a ruchniistic form, yes, in a much more ruchniistic form, but you have the beginnings of the Bana Chaya Mezayna. The Chesed within Malchus Atzilus is already formed with a Bana Chaya Mezayna that ultimately will become Gashmistic in Olam Hazeh Gashmi. So when the Eibusher gives you your hashpah on Rosh Hashana, it's not like Rabbi Yossi says, that it's just a Chesed Ruchni, a Chesed Poshut, and there's no tziyurim in the Chesed. There's no form of what the Chesed will look like. Says Rabbana, no. Already within Malchus Atzilus, when you are assigned your Chesed for the whole year, it already has the form of the Bana Chaya Mezayna. So it's decided then not just how much Chesed you're going to have, but what the Chesed should go to. Should the Chesed go to Bana? Should it go to Chaya? Should it go to Mezayna? That's all already formed within Malchus Atzilus, and it's already decided. So already on Rosh Hashana it's decided how much parnasa you will have, and how much gesund you will have, and how much children you will have. It's all already decided on Rosh Hashana, because Malchus Atzilus already is nitztayer with the tziyurim of the Bana Chaya Mezayna as they are in Olam Hazeh Gashmi, only in a ruchniistic form. So that's why the Rabbanan say that there's no din every single day. There's no need for a new judgment every day. Not like Rabbi Yossi, who says every day it has to be decided what your chesed should go towards. Say the Rabbana, no. What the chesed should go towards? Should it go towards Bana or Chaya Mezayna was already decided on Rosh Hashana. That's included in the din of mishpat of Rosh Hashana. Because Atzilus to Asiyah is Ein Aroch, but not entirely Ein Aroch. So within Malchus Atzilus you have the tziyur of Olam HaAsiyah, Beruchnius. So there's no need for a din gomer every single day. It's all already decided. However, even the Rabbanan agree that there is some kind of a mishpat every day, which is why we daven. So what's that? What's decided every single day? So here the Rebbe Rashab gives two possibilities. Possibility number one, although it was decided already on Rosh Hashana, not just how much chesed you're going to have, but what it should go towards, but it's not decided if that should be a bracha or chas v'shalom, the opposite of a bracha. Sometimes a person gets hashpois, and hashpois ruin them. A person can have a lot of money, and the money can corrupt them. A person can have a lot of, children, and chas v'shalom not handle that properly. So the hashpois could either be a bracha to you, or the hashpois could be the same hashpois, but it could cause chas v'shalom something bad. So we're davening every day, Baruch Aleinu and Rafa'enu. What are we davening every day? That the hashbois that were decided for us on Rosh Hashana, and not just as a general hashbah, but even the specific hashbois that were predetermined on Rosh Hashana, we're davening every day that those should be given to us in a way which is a bracha. We should handle it, and we should handle it well, and it should enhance our lives and make us happier, not make us more miserable. That's what we're davening for every day. That's one option. Or another option, he says, is perhaps that the hashpah could remain beruchnius. Since on Rosh Hashana, all the chayis is contained within Malchus Atzilus, so even though we said Malchus Atzilus already has the form of Bana Chaya Mezayna, but it's a Bana Chaya Mezayna in a ruchniistic way. It's like the sweetness in a svara. So what are we davening for every day? that the Bana Chayim Azayna should come down from a Ruchnistic estate to a Gashmistic estate. The Bana Chayim Azayna should be begashmius, physical health, physical children, physical parnasa. Otherwise, yes, we have Bana Chayim Azayna, but we have a spiritual version of a Bana Chayim Azayna. And a spiritual version of Bana Chayim Azayna was taka given to us on Rosh Hashana, but we want a physical version of Bana Chayim Azayna. So this perhaps is the second reason why we have to daven every day according to the Rabanan, asking that the Bana Chayim Azayna, which was predetermined on Rosh Hashana, which is formed and contained within Malchus Atzilus, should come down begashmius and be a gashmistic Bana Chayim Azayna. But that's already not a din gomer. It's not a full-fledged din, it's a minor judgment every day. So to summarize, and with this we conclude, we have these two opinions. Everybody agrees that on Rosh Hashanah is the grand Dinu Mishpat. And then it's decided exactly how much chesed you're going to have in your account in Malchus Atzilus for all your hashbois for the whole year. Everybody agrees to that. That's the Ikka judgment, and that's decided on Rosh Hashanah. Once you're given that amount, you're stuck with that for the whole year. What's the Machlokes? Reb Yossi says that chesed remains completely abstract and spiritual, and therefore there has to be a second judgment every single day as to what form that chesed should take on for that day. Bana, Chayim, Azayna, or two of them, or all three of them. That's a din gomer every single day. But according to the Rabbana, no. That's also already contained within Malchus Atzilus. Malchus Atzilus already has on Rosh Hashanah what form the Chayis is going to take. Is it Bana Chayim Azayna, or all of them, or two of them, or one of them? It's all already formed within Malchus Atzilus. That's not decided every single day. And therefore, according to the Rabbanan, there's no need for a din gomer every single day. But there is a minor judgment every day for these two things. Will the hashba come to you and be an enhancement, be a bracha in your life, or chas v'shalom, be the opposite of a bracha? Or B, will the hashba that was given to you in a specific form for Bana or Chayim or Zayna, will that stay beruchnius, or will it manifest itself begashmius, mamish, and you'll have it begashmius. So b'meila, as we look forward to Rosh Hashana, which is the Yom Adin and Yom Kippur, this is the understanding that we now have based on Chassidus, that what's going to happen on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur is that we're all going to be given within Malchus Atzilus the full package of hashpa that we're going to have for the coming year. And he says there that that's going to be dependent on our avodah during Elul and Aseret Yimei Tshuva. The more tshuva we do and the harder we work and the more schusim we have, the more we have the chance that the Eibishter should give us a big account full of lots of hashpos in Malchus Atzilus for us for the coming year. And Be'ezras Hashem, we'll have a ksivach simatayva, the Shana Tayva Musuka, and we'll be judged on Yom Adin for a wonderful, amazing year with an abundance of hashpois and an abundance of brachas for kol tuv sela b'gashmius u'beruchnius.